Hi everyone, Paul Akers, host of the American Innovator. You know, the innovative spirit is alive and well, and everywhere I travel around the world, I bring back ideas and creativity to share with my audience to continuously improve and change the way we live. Welcome to the American Innovator. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the American Innovator. This week we're going to be talking healthcare with Judy and Tom Shuker. They wrote a book called Perfecting Patient's Journey. So we'll continue this week with part 2 of Lean Healthcare, and I think Tom and Judy's insights are really going to change the way you think about healthcare and the way it's delivered in the U.S.
So we focused in this conversation on emergency department, but we've used the very same principles in surgical supply, in mental health, in I'm blanking out on options here, but all through the hospital. Laboratory services,
radiology.
If there's a process, it can be improved using this methodology. And sort of our phrase for it is see together, learn together, act together, so that you start by getting all the people who are either doing the work or supplying the work, receiving the work in the room together, not all of them, but to get representatives to draw the map that represents how things work today and how well they work today. And then they create a vision for a future state that would be a better way to get things done. And then they work on getting to that level of improvement. And there's something about that act of getting them in the room together, focusing on the map rather than focusing on who's to blame, that allows them to work together to move forward and do it in a really creative way.
So I want to see if I got that. You said first see, learn, and improve, or act. What was the
act?
It was act.
Yep, learn together, act together.
Yeah, interesting, because I've always said the very first thing and the most important thing in lean is to be able to see waste. Until you have lean eyes and you see waste, you'll never accomplish anything. That's step one. So I think that's interesting that you see the same thing there.
And the other thing that we're trying to do is to get people to not only develop eyes for waste, but we focus on waste as a symptom of system problems, so that they're also looking for problems in flow, looking for problems in work quality, looking for problems in meeting customer requirements. And all of those problems bubble up as waste.
Let me ask you a tough question, and you're probably, well, I don't know if you'll be able to answer it or not, but it's an unusual question. If you were to boil healthcare down to having one problem that seems to be the biggest constraint, the biggest problem, what is it? What is the biggest issue in healthcare to make it more effective?
My personal opinion is it fits with with hospital errors. I think they're a contributor to bankrupting our hospital system.
That's fascinating, because errors are a big deal at our company. We are obsessed with not making mistakes. It costs 10 times more every time we make a mistake. I think 10 times is a way low estimate. I think it's like 30 times whenever you make a mistake. It interrupts flow, it interrupts productivity and people's ability to focus on the customer. It's just a gigantic roadblock.
Yeah, I think, patient falls, for instance, is a big thing in hospitals, and there's been methods tried to try to prevent that from happening, but every time it occurs, it's another $20,000. I've read $20,000 more to that person's stay for the extension of time.
And why are they falling? Do we know?
A lot of different reasons, depending on which particular floor, surgical floor, or wherever they're at. Sometimes people fall right in physical therapy when they're supposed to be getting stronger, and the nurse or the physical therapist just happens to walk away when they shouldn't have, and the person falls to the floor. I think Judy and we heard that story from that one lady at the Michigan Hospital Association that told us about her undergoing physical therapy for a hip replacement, and she'd gone through the surgery successful, but when she was going through physical therapy at that site, that same thing occurred to her, and she wound up now never being able to walk right and having a cane because of the extra injury from the fall after the surgery.
So the question is, and this is a very important question, Was it the process at that physical therapist's office that created the problem, or was it the individual administering the care? I don't want to use the word negligent, but just not being engaged. Do you have an opinion on that?
In this particular case, there was a couple things that if you step back and you say what went wrong here, which is the thing you want to do, what they, for one thing, where this person was walking, it had some, it was like a treadmill area, but it didn't have any railings next to it. So somebody should have been by that person. So that's one thing that was wrong. There wasn't a place for that person to grab onto. And in the way it was set up, somebody should have been next to them. The second thing they found wrong is they were having this person do that over a cement floor. There was no carpet, there was no padding. So the structure of the room in this case caused this particular woman's problem.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just doesn't make sense to me sometimes. Again, going back to the seemingly the smartest people in the world, the people that are in healthcare, makes such obvious mistakes. I mean, not having a railing up on something like that would just seem so obvious, particularly someone who's trying to be rehabilitated. But that stuff gets missed all the time.
Well, I think it's also, related to that, I think it's the fragmentation because, we've all worked in places where there are silos. But if you, healthcare, I think, is even in many ways more siloed because you have the people who do administration, you have doctors, you have nurses, and you have allied health professionals or support staff. All of them come from different professions. They all have different roles. And when you start taking apart an incident like the one Tom talked about, a lot of times it's who's got responsibility for which particular part of the problem, sort of like an aviation accident. If you look at most aviation accidents, you find there were typically multiple things that went wrong with different groups responsible for different parts of it. And I think that's what we would see most of the time in healthcare. There's not a single person typically who's responsible. It's that there were a whole cascade of things that happened that different groups, different parts of the healthcare organization have responsibility for. And getting the hospital to look holistically at that whole process and what's happening is really one of the things you have to do to keep patients safe.
So let me ask you this. Who's the book geared towards? Is it geared towards the hospital administrator, the president, the CEO of a hospital to get everybody on board? Who's reading the book? The nurse, the CEO, the doctors? Who's this geared at?
Go ahead, Judy.
It's really geared towards someone who wants to lead a value stream improvement effort in their hospital. It could be somebody who's manager of a unit, like a manager of ER. It could be somebody who's coming out of quality. A lot of hospitals these days have quality departments or process improvement departments. But it's typically, we've written it for three groups of folks. Somebody who would be a champion for value stream improvement, who's a more senior level person, and then someone who's responsible for the particular either department or value stream where the improvement effort's going to take place, and somebody who's interested in learning to be a facilitator for value stream improvement. And those three groups of people would be the primary audience for the guide.
It would seem like the person at the top, though, would be very important to get them engaged in this.
Yeah, Paul, I gave a copy of this book to a CEO in my hometown of a healthcare organization that provides assisted living, independent living, assisted living, nursing care, and rehabilitation care. And it's a pretty good sized organization in the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan here. And he came back just a few days later to me and he said, wow, this is really, I've got so many problems with transition of care from the person leaving the hospital, going from our facility back to the hospital, coming into a rehab, back from the rehab to assisted living. I've got so many broken pieces here of what in reading your book, this is exactly the way I have to start looking at things. So, and that was a CEO coming back from that.
Yeah, that is, wow, that's crazy. It's great, but it's crazy that they're not more aware of this methodology. I guess I'm still a little surprised. Again, very highly educated people, You'd think they would be aware of concepts like lean manufacturing and be more on board with implementing. I know I'm only speaking because I'm so frustrated because when I engage the healthcare system in Bellingham, Washington, I just think to myself, I cannot even believe that what's happening is happening. I'll tell you a situation. I went to an ear, nose, throat specialist the other day, and I called him up on the phone. I hadn't been there like 8 years, and they said, "Oh, this is Paul," and they found all my records. And go, "Wow, this is amazing! You have everything on digital. It looks like you've got all my records. This is great. I haven't been there in 8 years. I'm just going to go back, quick checkup. Everything's going to be fine." I go in there, and after a half hour, I was exhausted from writing my name on 30 different forms. I'm just like, you can't, this can't be real, And again, a 5-minute experience, a 5-minute doctor's visit, and 30 minutes of paperwork. And I'm just thinking, and as I'm filling out the paperwork, I'm thinking to myself, and they got to go file all this, and then they got to transpose it. And no, it can't be that we're in the 21st century and people are still doing this.
Yeah.
But there's two things I would say about that. One is that, and you've hit on one of the, I think, cardinal differences between manufacturing and everybody else. Manufacturing, usually there were a group of engineers who designed the processes that get used. Mm-hmm. But if you look, even in manufacturing, if you go to the administrative side, you go to the HR department or fiscal office or someplace else where they're not directly engaged in manufacturing, or you go to healthcare or retail, typically their processes have evolved over time. Nobody designed them to be efficient. They've just sort of, we did this and then we added a little of this and we took out a little of this.
So I have the solution. We need engineers running the hospitals.
I don't know that we need engineers, but we need people who can think like scientists and run experiments.
Very interesting.
The other thing I would say is, now, I'm going to probably make a lot of healthcare people unhappy with me right here.
I already did that, Judy. You don't have anything to worry about. They already hate me.
There are a lot of primary care practices and a lot of hospitals who have moved toward electronic records. Mm-hmm. I recently visited an office where they can get my record. If I had an image done at a clinic or at the hospital, they can electronically send my scans to my primary care physician's office. And, things are starting to move into the 21st century in a lot of places, but it's a slow process.
Yeah, you think about this, Judy. You can go anywhere in the world and walk up to an ATM machine and swipe your card, and in 20 seconds, international banking, currency exchange, and everything, completely and seamlessly, the transaction occurs. Anywhere in the world, and we can't figure out how to electronically manage records in healthcare.
Yeah, good example.
Pretty staggering.
Absolutely.
We're trying to get there, but it's as Tom says, it's a process.
I have one last question, and I'll let each of you wrap it up. And the question is, so if errors are really one of the biggest things, how successful have you been in your methodology of implementing lean in critical care environments in reducing errors?
I think if we go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Judy.
I was going to say back to Tom's example about surgery, and I'll ask him to say a little bit more about this in terms of picking instruments for doctors who are going to perform surgery. We've got really good documentation of reducing errors there. And you get the right instruments picked and you make sure the instruments are sterilized, you reduce a lot of your problems in surgery. That's just one example.
Yeah, we worked with one sterile processing organization that had scheduled surgeries for that day, and that sterile processing department had something in the neighborhood of 400 calls from surgery down to that sterile processing organization because something was missing, therefore delaying surgery.
Wow.
And when we got done, that went down to, I think, less than 20 calls a day for them to bring something up. And going back into sterile processing with those folks and starting to look at, we found instruments that were back in storage that were from doctors that had died 10 years before. That were still being kept.
Oh, you can only laugh. Yeah, you can only laugh. That's crazy.
Same principle applies to, getting the right medication to people, getting the right blood
Okay,
to
right.
people. Just the same kind of thinking and using the same kinds of practices can reduce all kinds of errors.
Well, I tell you, I wish there was a directory of lean hospitals so I could make sure I only give my business to them because, gosh, the ones that are not practicing lean, it's like going back to the Stone Age. You might as well just take the wheels off the cart and drag it down the road. As far as I'm concerned, it's that backwards.
You
But
know, when we first started this, Paul, trying to get into healthcare, and we had a partner that's no longer with us. He's deceased, but he was a physician, a Dr. John Long, and he taught at Harvard Medical School, very well credentialed pathologist. And we went knocking on the doors of some hospitals, and even with a doctor of his credibility, and they said, "Lean's for manufacturing. Just
yeah,
we're not the same. Just we're not ready for you." And it took.
isn't that something? So let's tell the listeners how to get the book, how to contact you if they want to talk to you, all that good stuff. Go ahead.
Judy?
Probably the easiest, well, on the book, you can get through www.lean.org, the Lean
Okay.
Enterprise Institute, or you can get it from Amazon. It's now available in hard copy and electronically as of last week. So you
Excellent.
can get it from Amazon, an ebook version, or you can get an Apple or Kindle version as well. So just go Perfecting Patient Journeys is the title of the book.
When are you going to have the audio version or the lean version for me? People like me who I don't like to read. I like to listen to my books when I'm exercising, when I'm walking, when I'm fall asleep at night. I listen to a book every night before I fall asleep. It's excellent. We need the audio version.
I don't know where we're going to get that, but I think we may be getting a Chinese version. That probably won't help you very much.
Okay.
You want to talk about how to get us?
Yeah, we're all part of the Lean Transformation Group. We kind of go by the designation LTG,
Okay.
and you can reach us by getting our information off of our website at www.lean-transform.com.
Excellent.
And it tell you a little bit about us and how we try to work with organizations, and you'll be able to get the book by.
Well, it was a great talking to you, and I want you to come out to Washington and work with our hospitals out here quickly.
Call us up. We'll come up.
Come to Washington. We like it out there.
Well, thanks so much, Judy and Tom. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed the interview, and they did a great job, and I'm glad someone's doing something about healthcare.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
All right. Bye-bye.
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 Remember, life's an adventure. Be a part of the solution. Go out, learn, improve, change, think outside the box. We can change the way the world thinks. Be an innovator. I really got to stop getting myself in these situations. That's a leopard, and that's an elephant. Yes, and this is a cheetah.
Like, oh, I saw
Here,
that. already.
kitty, 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 kitty,
Oh,
kitty.
cute. He wants to play.
Uh-oh. Got it.